In the heart of a picturesque suburban neighborhood, where manicured lawns met quaint picket fences, stood a community that prided itself on maintaining order and harmony. This was not just any neighborhood, it was governed by a homeowners association, HOA, that wielded considerable power over its residents. The HOA had established a set of strict guidelines designed to uphold property values and aesthetic appeal, dictating everything from paint colors to landscaping choices. While many appreciated the structure it provided, others felt stifled by the stringent rules, creating an undercurrent of tension among the residents. At the center of this tension was my sister, Sarah, who had recently moved into her charming home filled with dreams of creating a welcoming space. She embraced her individuality, often adorning her garden with vibrant flowers and unique decor that reflected her personality. Initially, neighbors admired her creativity, but as time passed, her choices began to attract the scrutiny of the HOA, particularly from one vocal member, an entitled figure known simply as Karen. Karen had taken it upon herself to ensure that every resident adhered to the HOA's regulations, often going out of her way to report any perceived infractions. With a reputation for being petty and vindictive, Karen thrived on enforcing compliance. What began as whispers about Sarah's unconventional garden soon escalated into formal complaints filed with the HOA board. Each complaint was met with an overzealous response, amplifying the tension between the two women. As Karen's actions became more aggressive, Sarah found herself caught in a web of regulations that felt increasingly suffocating. This suburban dream began to morph into a nightmare as Karen's relentless pursuit of conformity threatened to unravel everything Sarah had worked so hard to build. Little did she know, this conflict would spiral into an unexpected crisis that would change her life forever. Sarah had always been a creative soul, fueled by a deep passion for turning spaces into reflections of her personality. From a young age, she filled her bedroom with handmade crafts and quirky decor, each piece telling a story. When she purchased her charming house in the suburban neighborhood, it was more than just a property, it was a canvas for her dreams. She envisioned vibrant flower beds, whimsical art installations in the yard, and an inviting atmosphere where friends and family could gather freely. Her previous experiences had shaped her optimism about building a community. Mary had lived in different neighborhoods, some governed by HOAs that were either painfully rigid or charmingly flexible. The rules varied widely, but it was the supportive communities that left a lasting impression on her. While she understood the need for some guidelines to maintain order, she never expected to find herself at odds with an outlier like Karen. Initially, Sarah was hopeful about life in this new neighborhood. She delighted in meeting neighbors who shared similar interests and felt inspired by the potential for creating something beautiful in her yard. Sarah's garden bloomed as an expression of joy and freedom, with sunflowers nodding towards the sky and colorful annuals dotted throughout, much to the initial acclaim of her neighbors. However, as complaints began filtering into the HOA about her choices, Sarah's aspirations transformed into anxious dilemmas. Despite the criticism from Karen, Sarah maintained a sense of resolve. She loved her home too much to dull its charm to appease one discontented neighbor. Yet with each complaint from Karen, it became increasingly clear that preserving her vision would take more than courage, it would require a fight against the very system designed to protect homes like hers. Little did she know how far this battle would go and how dire the consequences might become. One sunny Saturday morning, Sarah decided to take her garden to the next level. Inspired by a recent visit to a local art fair, she purchased a colorful collection of mosaic tiles intended for a new stone pathway winding through her flower beds. The idea was to create a whimsical walkway that would draw visitors into her garden's vibrant embrace. With enthusiasm bubbling inside her, she spent the entire day digging, laying tiles, and arranging them in playful patterns that danced with color. As she worked, the sound of laughter and chatter filled the air from neighbors out enjoying their own yards. At first, the colorful tiles seemed to be met with admiration, friendly nods and smiles came her way. However, unbeknownst to Sarah, Karen was watching from behind her own meticulously maintained curtains with growing disdain. To Karen, an HOA enforcer at heart, this burst of creativity felt like a direct challenge to the strict aesthetic guidelines of their neighborhood. The following week, just as Sarah was admiring her handiwork and envisioning future gatherings with friends on her new path, she received an official notice from the HOA. It detailed complaints about her unpermitted modifications and asserted that the mosaic pathway violated community standards. The letter claimed that such bold designs did not align with the neighborhood's commitment to uniformity. Stunned but resolute, Sarah knew she had poured her heart into this project to enhance not just her home but the sense of community around it. She couldn't comprehend how something so joyful could provoke such hostility. While she believed that art should inspire and unite people, Karen viewed it as a disruptive act threatening the very fabric of their neighborhood's order. This clash over Sarah's artistic expression marked the beginning of a spiraling conflict that would escalate far beyond any initial dispute about landscaping choices. As the days passed after Sarah received the HOA's initial complaint, the atmosphere in the neighborhood became increasingly charged. Karen, emboldened by her success, escalated her campaign against Sarah with relentless fervor. She began to patrol the community like a hawk, taking notes on everything she perceived as violations of the HOA's rules. Each time she spotted a colorful flower or a uniquely shaped garden ornament in Sarah's yard, she would scribble down her grievances, ready to file another complaint. Soon, murmurs among other neighbors took shape. Some voiced their support for Sarah's innovative spirit, appreciating her efforts to beautify the neighborhood. Others, however, sided with Karen, fearing that Sarah's artistic choices might undermine their carefully curated environment. The community split into factions, with heated discussions erupting at local gatherings and in online forums dedicated to neighborhood news. The complaints mounted rapidly, first regarding the mosaic pathway, followed by issues involving her choice of flower colors and even the decorative wind chimes that hung from her porch. Each notice from the HOA came with a warning that further violations could lead to fines or additional legal actions. The stress weighed heavily on Sarah. What had started as an innocent project became a growing source of anxiety. She found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, worrying about what new infraction Karen would concoct next. Feeling cornered and frustrated, Sarah decided to hold an informal gathering in her backyard to rally support from neighbors who appreciated her vision. She hoped this would help bridge the divide and highlight how art could unite rather than divide. However, Karen wouldn't let go so easily. She showed up uninvited at the gathering with a fresh set of complaints and accusations that further inflamed tensions. What was once a peaceful suburban haven teetered on the brink of chaos as Sarah faced an uphill battle fueled by Karen's increasingly aggressive tactics. Little did Sarah know that this escalating conflict was just beginning and that its repercussions would soon spiral out of control. Determined to address her grievances, Sarah decided it was time for a face-to-face confrontation with Karen. After weeks of escalating stress and anxiety, she felt an overwhelming need to express her concerns directly, hoping that a sincere conversation could bridge the chasm between them. With a sense of purpose, she prepared herself mentally and emotionally for what was sure to be a challenging encounter. One evening, Sarah found herself standing at Karen's door, heart racing as she knocked firmly yet respectfully. Moments later, Karen opened the door, an air of defensive superiority radiating from her as she eyed Sarah warily. Without hesitation, Sarah took a deep breath and voiced her feelings. "Karen, I think we need to talk about what's been happening between us," she began cautiously. Her attempt at calm dialogue quickly shifted as Karen interrupted with sharp retorts about the disruption Sarah's garden had caused in the community. "You think your whimsical choices are harmless," Karen snapped. "But they threaten our home's integrity. You're not just impacting yourself, you're disrupting everything we've worked hard to create here." Fury mingled with heartbreak for Sarah as she responded, "I only wanted to bring some color and life into this neighborhood. Why can't art be a part of our home?" As emotions ran high, both women unveiled their motives. Where Sarah sought community and expression, Karen clung rigidly to tradition and conformity. This exchange highlighted not only their differing values but also the personal stakes involved. For Sarah, it was about finding belonging through creativity. For Karen, it was about preserving control over her neatly ordered world. As tensions flared and voices raised in volume, neither woman seemed willing to back down or understand the other's perspective. What had started as a simple confrontation over aesthetics spiraled into a battle of wills that left both sides feeling more entrenched in their positions than ever before. The neighborhood stood on the brink of further division as this clash intensified into something deeper, an ideological war over identity and belonging within their community. Days turned into weeks, and the tension in the neighborhood had reached a boiling point. With Karen at the helm, the HOA seized upon every opportunity to assert its authority over Sarah's property. Just when Sarah thought the situation couldn't worsen, she received a chilling notice in the mail, a formal demolition order for her beloved mosaic pathway. The letter cited multiple violations of HOA regulations, claiming that her artistic installation not only undermined the aesthetic cohesion of the community but also posed potential hazards. Karen had outdone herself, gathering support from other residents who echoed her complaints, leading to an overwhelming wave of pressure from the HOA board. The order indicated that if Sarah did not remove her pathway within 30 days, further action would be taken, potentially including the demolition of her entire garden area. Staring at the letter with disbelief, Sarah felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her. This was not just an attack on her garden, it was an assault on her identity and creativity. The vibrant oasis she had cultivated, filled with color and life, was now under threat of destruction due to Karen's relentless pursuit of conformity. Fueled by a mix of anger and desperation, Sarah decided she could not simply acquiesce to this order. She began documenting her garden's transformation, gathering photographs and testimonials from neighbors who appreciated her efforts to beautify the community. In her heart, she believed that art had a place in every home, and she was determined to fight for that belief. As the deadline approached, Sarah sought legal advice, hoping to challenge the HOA's decision and preserve the vision she had fought so hard to create. Little did she know, this battle would draw her deeper into a conflict that would unleash unforeseen consequences and pit her against not only Karen but also an entire system designed to uphold strict adherence to community norms. As news of the demolition order spread through the neighborhood, the community's reaction was a tapestry of support and division. Some residents, inspired by Sarah's bold creativity, rallied around her cause, urging others to stand with her against the HOA's oppressive regulations. They organized a community meeting at the local park, eager to discuss their shared values and the importance of artistic expression in their homes. These supporters painted signs adorned with vibrant colors and encouraging slogans like, "Creativity is not a crime," and "Art for all," hoping to showcase their backing for Sarah. However, not all neighbors shared this sentiment. A vocal group believed that Karen's concerns were valid and felt that Sarah's garden disruption undermined their collective vision for the neighborhood. They argued passionately about the need for order and compliance, convinced that without strict adherence to the rules, the character of their community would diminish. This faction circulated flyers warning against supporting Sarah, reminding residents of ongoing struggles with property values and uniformity. Tensions flared during any chance encounters. Supporters of Sarah often expressed frustration toward those siding with the HOA, while opinionated opponents viewed them as irresponsible troublemakers risking the stability they valued. Conversations became charged, and casual chats over fences turned into debates filled with pointed remarks. In this environment of heightened emotions, Sarah often found herself overwhelmed by the division within her own community. Yet, she appreciated the outpouring of support from those who recognized her dream as an essential part of their shared space. Encouraged by her allies, she began compiling a petition to present to the HOA, believing that if enough voices spoke out, change could be achieved. But she also felt a nagging fear that her fight against Karen and the HOA could lead to further repercussions, not just for herself but also potentially emboldening divisions that might fracture her neighborhood beyond repair. The conflict had transformed into more than just a personal struggle, it had become a referendum on identity and belonging in the community they all once cherished. The emotional toll of the escalating conflict was weighing heavily on Sarah. What had started as a passionate project gradually transformed into a daily source of anxiety and worry, deeply affecting her mental health. She found herself losing sleep, haunted by thoughts of the demolition order and the real possibility that her beloved garden, her sanctuary, could be destroyed. Every time she stepped outside, she felt the weight of scrutiny, as if Karen's gaze followed her every move. Financially, the burden was equally daunting. Seeking legal advice to challenge the HOA's decision came with mounting costs that Sarah hadn't anticipated. As she consulted with attorneys about possible defenses and strategies for her appeal, she drained her savings, pouring resources into what felt like an uphill battle. The stress was compounded by worries over how this conflict would impact her property value. If the HOA successfully demolished part of her home, it could set a precedent for future disputes and diminish her investment considerably. Despite these challenges, Sarah remained determined to fight for her vision. With encouragement from supportive neighbors, she began organizing a campaign to gather signatures for a petition against the demolition order. This collective activism sparked a renewed sense of hope within her, a reminder that she wasn't alone in this fight. Still, each day brought fresh reminders of the adversarial nature of her struggle. Moments when Karen would circulate around the neighborhood fueled new rumors and additional complaints filed against her. As days turned into weeks, Sarah felt like she was caught in a relentless cycle of emotional highs and lows. One moment she found solace in community support at gatherings where artistic expression was championed, only to be met with debilitating despair later when faced with Karen's unyielding opposition. Balancing these emotions proved exhausting, but deep down, Sarah knew that giving up was not an option. Her dream home, and the essence of who she was, depended on it. With each setback, she steeled herself for what lay ahead, not just a fight for a garden but a battle for identity and belonging in a place that had once felt like home. As Sarah's battle against the HOA intensified, the situation took a darker turn when Karen decided to escalate matters further by filing charges against her. Claiming that Sarah had been resisting authority and disturbing the peace during confrontations, Karen set in motion a series of legal repercussions that would add yet another layer of stress to Sarah's already overwhelming fight. The HOA backed Karen, lending credibility to her claims, and soon Sarah found herself summoned to attend a local court hearing. The news of the charges hit Sarah hard. It felt like a betrayal from her own community. Where she had envisioned laughter and neighborly support, she now faced an adversarial setting where her creativity was branded as disruptive behavior. On the day of the hearing, anxiety coursed through her veins as she sat in the courtroom, surrounded by murmurs of disapproval from those who sided with Karen. The atmosphere was tense. She could feel the judgment in every glance directed her way. In addition to potential fines and further legal action, Sarah's reputation within the community was at stake. Whispers circulated among neighbors about her alleged misconduct, fueling animosity towards her even among those who had once supported her garden project. Her heart sank as she realized that her dream home was becoming synonymous with chaos and conflict rather than creativity and beauty. Determined to stand her ground, Sarah decided to defend herself at the hearing. With supportive friends seated behind her, she prepared to speak passionately about her vision for community art and expression. However, as she opened her mouth to present her case, a wave of doubt washed over her. Would the court see the passion behind her projects or only view them through the narrow lens of HOA regulations? Despite feeling cornered, Sarah knew this fight was about more than just a garden. It represented a fundamental clash between individual expression and communal conformity. As the judge called for order and began proceedings, she steeled herself for what lay ahead. This was not just a legal battle but also a defining moment in reclaiming her identity within a community that had once embraced creativity but now threatened to suffocate it. In the wake of the charges filed against her, Sarah knew she needed to take decisive action to navigate the mounting challenges ahead. The pressure weighed heavily on her shoulders, but she was determined not to face this fight alone. With encouragement from supportive neighbors, she began reaching out for legal counsel, seeking experts who understood HOA regulations and could help her craft a strong defense. After conducting thorough research and meeting with several lawyers, Sarah finally found a firm that specialized in homeowners association disputes. The attorney was passionate about property rights and shared her belief in the importance of individual expression. As they discussed her case, Sarah felt a renewed sense of hope. This was someone who not only understood the law but also recognized the emotional stakes involved in her fight. In addition to seeking legal counsel, Sarah leaned into community support more than ever. She organized a neighborhood meeting centered on fostering dialogue around artistic expression and community identity. This gathering attracted an even larger crowd than before, with many residents eager to share their perspectives and voice their concerns about their own experiences with the HOA. During the meeting, supporters spoke passionately about Sarah's garden project as a symbol of creativity that enriched their neighborhood. They brainstormed strategies for how they could collectively advocate for a more inclusive approach to community aesthetics among HOA members. Inspired by this outpouring of support, Sarah felt empowered to create a petition urging the HOA to reassess its rules regarding artistic expression. As she gathered signatures from neighbors who cherished her vision for the garden and were willing to stand in solidarity with her, Sarah realized that she wasn't just fighting for herself, she was advocating for every creative spirit within their community who felt silenced by rigid regulations. However, as she engaged further with both legal counsel and community members, doubts crept in occasionally. Would these efforts be enough to shift perceptions within the HOA? Could they influence Karen's unwavering stance? Yet despite these uncertainties, Sarah remained committed. This journey had become about more than just saving her garden, it was about reclaiming her voice in a space that had once felt welcoming but now seemed fraught with conflict. With each step forward, she felt the empowering pulse of community behind her, fueling her resolve to see this battle through. As the court proceedings unfolded, several key moments began to shift the momentum of Sarah's legal battle. On the morning of the first hearing, she arrived early, her heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and determination. Her legal counsel had advised her to prepare a clear statement about her vision for her garden and its significance to the community. With supportive friends in attendance, Sarah felt a sense of solidarity that bolstered her courage. During the hearing, Karen took the stand first, presenting evidence that depicted Sarah as a reckless rule-breaker who threatened the neighborhood's harmony. Her testimony was filled with exaggerated claims, painting Sarah's artistic endeavors as disruptive rather than as an expression of creativity. However, as Karen spoke, murmurs of discontent rippled through Sarah's supporters in the audience. Many were visibly frustrated by the mischaracterization of Sarah's intentions. When it was finally Sarah's turn to speak, she presented her case with passion and clarity. She shared her journey of transforming her garden into a vibrant space that welcomed both creativity and community engagement. As she spoke about gathering signatures for her petition and organizing community meetings, something remarkable happened. Members of the audience began to nod in agreement and cheer softly in support. It was as if her words resonated deeply with those who had felt stifled by HOA regulations themselves. In a surprising turn during cross-examination, Sarah's attorney revealed a series of emails among HOA board members discussing potential biases against artistic projects within their guidelines. This evidence cast doubt on whether Karen's complaints were genuinely motivated by concern for community values or rather by personal vendetta. The judge took note of this revelation, shifting the atmosphere in the courtroom. The turning point came when several residents expressed their willingness to testify on Sarah's behalf, highlighting how her garden had inspired them and enriched their lives. Their testimonies painted a much different picture than Karen's narrative, demonstrating that creativity could coexist with community norms. By the end of the hearing, there was a palpable shift in energy. It felt as though hope had resurfaced amidst uncertainty. While challenges remained ahead, Sarah left the courtroom feeling emboldened by these pivotal moments. No longer merely fighting for her own garden, she now embodied a growing movement advocating for individuality and creative expression against conformity, a concept that resonated deeply not just within her neighborhood but beyond it as well. As the legal battle reached its climax, the court finally delivered its ruling on Sarah's case. The judge acknowledged the complexities of the situation, recognizing that while the HOA had a duty to maintain community standards, it should not stifle individual expression. In a surprising but welcome decision, the judge ruled in favor of Sarah, allowing her to keep her garden intact and dismissing the charges of disturbing the peace. Relief washed over Sarah as she stepped out of the courtroom. She felt an immense weight lift from her shoulders. However, the victory came with conditions. The court mandated that the HOA must engage in discussions with residents about their policies regarding artistic expression and community aesthetics, paving the way for potential reforms. This outcome not only validated Sarah's efforts but also instigated a necessary dialogue about balance in their community. In the aftermath, Sarah experienced both triumph and reflection. Although she had won this battle, she understood that the fight wasn't entirely over. The tensions within her neighborhood still simmered beneath the surface, and she realized that ongoing vigilance would be crucial in maintaining her hard-won space for creativity. Her victory inspired other residents to become more active participants in HOA discussions, advocating for guidelines that would embrace diversity rather than suppress it. As life began to return to a semblance of normalcy, Sarah found herself transformed by this experience. Her garden became not only a sanctuary but also a symbol of resilience and collective spirit among neighbors who had rallied behind her cause. While she remained aware of potential fallout from Karen and other opponents who might not accept this change gracefully, Sarah's outlook shifted significantly. She now saw herself as an advocate for individuality in artistic expression within her community. Ultimately, this confrontation with Karen and the HOA had taught Sarah invaluable lessons about courage, unity, and standing firm against opposition. She emerged from this ordeal not just as a homeowner fighting for her garden but as a catalyst for change in her neighborhood, an embodiment of what it meant to reclaim one's voice in pursuit of a more inclusive community where creativity could thrive alongside tradition. The events surrounding Sarah's legal battle and the ensuing community response sparked broader conversations about the role of homeowners associations, HOAs, in maintaining not just property values, but also the diverse tapestry of individual expression within neighborhoods. Sarah's victory became a pivotal moment, challenging the status quo and prompting residents to reconsider how community dynamics operated. In the wake of the court's decision, many homeowners began to question their own engagement with the HOA. Previously complacent in their adherence to rules, residents started to realize that flexibility and creativity could coexist with community standards. The discussions initiated by Sarah's case opened up pathways for reform that emphasized inclusivity and artistic expression, redefining what it meant to live harmoniously within a homeowners association. Additionally, this incident illuminated the complexities of individual rights versus communal regulations. As Sarah became an advocate for change, her journey underscored the need for balance between maintaining neighborhood aesthetics and allowing for personal creativity. It raised critical questions: should HOAs support artistic endeavors that enhance community spirit? How can rules be structured to ensure they do not infringe on personal expression? These reflections became central to conversations among community members, fostering a newfound sense of empowerment that encouraged others to voice their concerns. Moreover, Sarah's story resonated beyond her immediate neighborhood. It served as an example for many facing similar conflicts across various communities. It illustrated how one person's struggle could inspire collective action that challenged outdated regulations and fostered a more vibrant living environment. As neighbors embraced this shift, they began to embrace a philosophy where diversity thrived, not only in gardens but also in ideas and identities. In this transformed landscape, relationships among neighbors evolved as well. Supporters rallied together, forging friendships through shared values while previously opposing factions began to find common ground. The incident planted seeds of resilience and unity within the community, paving the way for a neighborhood where voices could be heard, where individuality was celebrated rather than stifled, and where art could flourish alongside tradition. Ultimately, the fallout from Sarah's case offered valuable lessons about advocacy, collaboration, and the importance of standing up against conformity in the pursuit of an inclusive community ethos. Reflecting on the tumultuous journey that Sarah endured, it became apparent that this experience had profoundly reshaped perceptions of ownership, belonging, and conflict within the community. For many residents, the incident highlighted the fine line between enforcing rules and stifling individual expression. Previously, the HOA had been viewed as a necessary guardian of property values and neighborhood aesthetics, but Sarah's struggle opened eyes to the potential for such organizations to become oppressive if unchecked. Through her battle, Sarah not only fought for her garden but also ignited a broader conversation about what it means to belong to a community. Her story resonated with those who felt marginalized by rigid standards that failed to accommodate diverse perspectives. As neighbors rallied around her cause, they began to see their homes not just as properties governed by rules but as extensions of their identities, spaces where creativity and personal expression could flourish alongside community values. In the aftermath, the dynamics shifted. Many residents began to engage more actively in HOA meetings, advocating for policies that celebrated individuality rather than suppressing it. This newfound participation fostered a sense of collective ownership over their shared environment, allowing neighbors to collaborate on initiatives that included art projects and community gardens, transforming the neighborhood into a tapestry of personal stories and creative endeavors. Moreover, Sarah's journey highlighted the importance of conflict as a catalyst for growth. While it initially divided the community, it ultimately brought people together through shared experiences and aspirations for a more inclusive environment. Residents learned that healthy dialogue could lead to positive change and that standing up for one's beliefs could inspire others to do the same. As Sarah surveyed her garden, a once contentious battleground now brimming with vibrant colors and life, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Her experience had served as a reminder that true belonging comes from embracing differences and fostering an atmosphere where everyone feels heard and valued. The conflict, while challenging, had transformed both Sarah and her neighborhood into advocates for creativity and resilience, shaping a future where individuality could coexist harmoniously within community life.